Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons preview show with myself and Sloth today. West Ham versus Liverpool, the last of the 2024 calendar year until we go into the new year with a trip to Man City to start off 2025. So it's going to get a nice and easy start for us. But we've got Liverpool to focus on, Sloth. They've been absolutely flying. They've been top of the league for a long time now, and deservedly so, as we'll go into shortly. Before we get into the stats and the breakdown and how Liverpool are going to play and how we can expect West Ham to play, because we've got a few suspensions now and injuries off the back of that Southampton win on Boxing Day. What have you made of Arne Slot's transition into the Premier League with Liverpool, and have they been better than you expected them to be at the start of the season?
No, I expected Arne Slot to really take to the job quickly. I'm very impressed with him in general as a manager, and I think the work he was doing in Holland Dutch football has kind of not progressed, but it has improved in at least its international footing, I'd say, or in European competitions in the past couple of years. And I think the way that he is playing, and I think particularly for players or developing them individually, is where he really excels. And players like Gravenberch and even Szoboszlai. I think Szoboszlai's form improved under what it was from Klopp. That's not saying Klopp wasn't major, but I just think that Slot maybe has a bit more. Well, he certainly has more charisma, but he has a bit more of an eye for what the individual needs and how to progress forward. And it will just be really interesting to see if, they're flying, as you said, at the moment. And I think if they can make a statement, if they win the title, which I personally think they will, I can't see them being caught, but that's a massive statement for him to come over in his first season and win the title, and potentially the other cups they're in, because they're a top side and they just seem to have quality players in two quality players in every position almost.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think with Arne Slot, his biggest thing that I've been impressed with is his flexibility, and also, as you say, individual performance progression of some players like Gapco, as you mentioned, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch. The way he's utilised him has been fantastic. So they've been deservedly top for a long time for a reason, as the stats suggest. So let's look at the tailored tape as we go into it. So West Ham currently on 23 points to Liverpool's 42. We've scored 23 goals to Liverpool's 40. We've conceded 30 goals to Liverpool's 17. And the positions reflect those stats, with West Ham sitting 13th and Liverpool sitting top of the league. When we look at the expected data as well, Liverpool deservedly top, and West Ham are slightly overperforming in terms of the expected data. So we should have around 19.97 points to Liverpool's 38.85. Expected goals scored of 28.31 to Liverpool's 42.49. Expected goals conceded of 36.70 to Liverpool's 17.34. And as I mentioned there, we're a couple of positions below where we expected to be in 15th, and Liverpool are top where they should be. And yeah, they've just been really impressive. I think they had that one defeat early on in the season to Forest at home that kind of, it was an anomaly because they've just been firing on all fronts. And I think that's also been very impressive that they've been able to sustain it, not just in the Premier League, but, they've been flying in the Champions League. They've beaten Leverkusen, Madrid. I think they went to AC Milan as well and won. So they've been really consistent across all fronts, obviously in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup as well. So do you see it being, we've just got to Christmas period now, Sloth, where, things start to get interesting. As we head into January, February, that's when the title charge and title talk heats up a little bit, and you start to see a couple of contenders drop off and a couple of the actual real contenders, cement themselves at the top. Do you expect Liverpool? I know you mentioned there, you expect Liverpool to go on and win it. So you think they can sustain this over the next 4 or 5 months in the Premier League as well as the other competitions?
I think they will. I think we might see points dropped in terms of them losing 1-0 here and there. And I think part of that will be down to rotation, just them using more players and trying to safeguard a squad as such. If they want to really make a statement, it's not just that they have to win the title, it's that they have win anything else. And I think that's going to be the goal. You know, he has to look to come in and win multiple cups. That's what any manager at a top should be to do, in my opinion. But I think for Arne Slot, it's really picking and choosing when he's going to play a full strength side. And, you know, Forest was, I mean, it was a really interesting game because Forest played like a David Moyes team where they sat back, soaked up the pressure and just were counter-attacking on the break. You know, I think that is the best way to approach playing this Liverpool side, because it's, as I mentioned, it's not just that they have one or two players in every position. It's the quality that they do have, and the fact that, you know, even their academy, and you look at players like Quansah coming through, you know, it's a really, really great squad. So you have to be very wary of that. And I think if we want to try and catch the Liverpool team, it has to be through maybe just a bit of fatigue in the fixtures, but I think it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And just to summarise on Liverpool for their season so far in the Premier League, they've got the best defensive record in the Premier League. 40 goals scored is the most at this point. And they also have the best expected offensive record in the Premier League with 42.94 XG. They're the second strongest defensive team as well in the Premier League with just 17 goals conceded. Only Arsenal are better than that with 16. And they rank first for expected points. They're averaging around 2.35 goals per game with an XG of 2.32, which is very scary. But the other way as well, only conceding an average of 1 goal per game with an expected goals against of 1.09. So defensively, they've been very, very solid. And they like to control possession, averaging around 57% in the Premier League so far. It's going to be a very difficult game. But looking at us, Slough, 4 games unbeaten now, 8 points from our last 4 games. Obviously coming off the back of that fantastic performance at St Mary's with that 1-0 win. We've got a few suspensions and injuries that we're going to touch on in a second, but where's your confidence level going into this? Because there's been a few occasions where we've played, you know, the likes of Liverpool at home in previous seasons, and we've gone into it feeling quite confident that we can get something. Do you go into it with that similar mindset, or is it slightly different going into this one?
I think anyone who's watched the West Ham performances of late would be lying if they said they felt confident. I think that's bolster from people. You know, we all like to see a big team slip up, but I really haven't seen anything in the performances that has made me think we could topple one of the big boys. You know, I think it's been really poor football, and we gave Southampton, of all teams, so many chances that, you know, I can't quite believe we managed to win that game, because as the of chances that they had was very similar to the Leicester game, in the sense that, you know, the quality of chances they had was substantial. You know, it wasn't like they were getting half chances, which is what I felt we had against Leicester. You know, we had lots of attempts, but they weren't high quality attempts. They were rushed, or, you know, as I mentioned, half chances. And Southampton should have been out of sight. We leave that Southampton side so much time, so much space. If we play like that against Liverpool, we're going to get slaughtered. It could be really bad.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think with the way we've played, again, like I was mentioning it in the Southampton review that we just did, that the results of late, if you're a neutral looking in, it looks good for West Ham. You know, 4 games unbeaten. You know, we've beaten Wolves. We've got some good points away at Bournemouth and home to Brighton. On paper, it looks good. But we've mentioned it before. If you're actually watching West Ham and, you know, the performances behind the actual results, it's not sustainable. And against a team like Liverpool, if we perform the same way, we're just going to get torn apart. And, you know, I've kind of put some expected lineups at the end that we'll go through, but just kind of touching on some of the omissions that we'll have. Obviously, Carlos Soler rumoured to pick up an injury, which is what took him off against Southampton. Both Guido Rodriguez and Souček picked up their 5th yellow card, so they're not going to be available in midfield. So we're pretty down to the bare bones in the middle of the park. Obviously, Max Kilman as well is expected to be out because of his injury at the back. I think we'll probably go with a back 5 just because we don't have any other midfielders really other than Alvarez and Paqueta, unless he wants to drop Kudus into the midfield 3 or play someone like Andy Irving or someone from the youth. What do you expect it to be, Slough? Are you expecting a back 5 just because of the injury crisis we have in the middle of the park?
Yeah, I think we'll go to a back 5, which is worrying because I don't think we've looked convincing at all with a back 5. But yeah, I think potentially what we're going to have to hope for is that if Mavropanos and Todibo can get their act together and form somewhat of a partnership, I think it's a very big ask, particularly with Mavropanos' form. But I think it's going to be a back 5, and we really need this West Ham side to start showing something other than pointless possession across the back line. Like, I suppose with a back 5, it's going to make that a bit easier to pass it along the back line. But, you know, I haven't seen anything in terms of how we are shaping up against sides that would really suggest to me there's going to be any sort of stylistic change, even in a back 5.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Let's take a look at the predicted lineups for both sides from our side. So on the left, again, a back 5 for West Ham. It's kind of difficult to predict how we would go with a back 5 because we could bring in Kufau into the back 5 and play him as part of the back 3 or someone like Cresswell. I think he might go with Cresswell just to provide a little bit more balance on that side instead of having 3 right-footed centre-backs and forcing like Mavropanos to play left centre-back. It will just be horrific against someone like Mo Salah as well, picking up those spaces. And then you've got Paqueta and Alvarez in midfield, as we mentioned, and then a front 3 of Kudus on the left, Bowen on the right, Fulkrug up top. With Liverpool, it's kind of difficult to predict how they'll go because they've got a few options. Like you said, they could bring in Jota up front. They could bring in Diaz on the left. The only admission that they have really is Szoboszlai, who picked up his 5th yellow card, so he won't be able to play. And I think they have a couple of injuries like the right back Conor Bradley as an example. So we'd expect it to be something like this. Does this scare you, Slough, looking at this? I mean, Liverpool have been on fire. You know, Salah, Gakpo, even Curtis Jones has shown his quality throughout this season. Does this scare you, looking at this?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at that and not feel any other way, really. I standout team in the league for a reason, and I think they're probably the standout team in Europe. I think they've been that good. The big worry for them, I think, is going to be if they can make sure that they've got someone like Kudus and Bowen tied up. You know, if they can keep their quiet, that's the threat we pose. I think it's those two. And to be honest, that Liverpool defence has been fantastic. I would say they're probably the best defence, but I would caveat that by saying Kelleher was fantastic when he came in to cover Alisson, and even though he you know did make a couple of clangers, I think it's probably the only reason that they aren't the strongest defence in the league, because I think player for player, I think only really Saliba gets in that back line. And even then, you're talking about probably having to drop either Liverpool centre-back. And, is that really something you do? I think we're going to have a hard time playing against them. Their pace, size, physicality, but ability as well. You know, it's not just that they can play you off the park. If you're going to make it difficult for them, they've got plan Bs. They've got plan Bs and Cs. So yeah. I think that's going to be the struggle. And you mentioned Curtis Jones. I think he's been fantastic this season, and it's really good to see him playing more. And I know he's been unlucky with injury at times, over the past few seasons, but getting a good run of games. You know, I think 2 years ago we were linked with him potentially on like a move away, and that should tell you how far he's progressed. You know, he's becoming a key part of that side, and we're going to have a tough time trying to keep him quiet, stop him from picking passes, and finding a way through that defence.
Yeah, 100%. I guess looking at it in a little bit more positive way for West Ham is Liverpool's defence has been outstanding, but of recent weeks, they have started to ship a few goals. You know, they conceded 3 at Tottenham despite scoring 6. They conceded 3 up at Newcastle as well when they drew 3-3. So, you know, almost a third of their goals that they've conceded this season in the Premier League have come in the last few weeks. So maybe that rotation, maybe that fatigue setting in a little bit for Liverpool as the season progresses. And as you mentioned, you know, Liverpool's defence has been outstanding. For me, the weak points that we can start to exploit if we bring these back up is obviously Trent, when he's going to come and play inside in midfield, he's going to leave that space vacant for someone like Kudus and Emerson to link up. And if we can get them on the break, if we are going to play a back 5, that is going to allow Emerson to push on a little bit further and have that backup of Cresswell and Paqueta or Alvarez, whoever, covering in behind. That's where we have to be very, very swift in transition and clinical, because it's one thing getting in those moments or having those rare moments where we're going to be pinned in for a lot of the game, but we have to capitalize. And on the other side, I think Bowen's been by far our best player in recent weeks, especially going forwards. And, you know, Robertson hasn't looked good at all. I think he's starting to regress as a player as well. So when we're talking about the Arsenal defense, maybe Calafiori I would put in front of Robertson at left back. But
well, if he can ever keep himself fit for a run of games, he's been
exactly. Yeah, but you know, going back to that point, if we're playing a back 3, Bowen and Kudus, they're going to have opportunities because either Trent's going to invert and Robertson's going to be looking to overlap a lot of the time on the other side. So there are going to be spaces on transition where Liverpool almost have a back 2 or back 3 of Van Dijk, Gomez, Trent, or Gravenberch dropping in McAllister. So I do think we can get some success on the break, but it's going to be very, very difficult to actually convert those chances and make sure we're defensively solid, because we've given up way too many chances. When we're playing a back 4, back 5, just this whole season, we've been really poor defensively. And if we're playing Alvarez and Paqueta as our midfield pivot in a back 5, there's going to be a lot of space for players like Curtis Jones to find spaces, Salah to drift in. If they play, to be honest, I wouldn't even play Núñez in this game if I was Slot. I would play someone like Jota just to find those pockets of spaces, because I just don't think this is a Núñez type game, because there isn't going to be much space to run in behind. I think Jota would be better suited for them, but time will tell whether Slot goes with that. But final point, Sloth, before we get into our predictions. Is there any way that we can stop Liverpool from, you know, getting the ball to the likes of Salah? What's the key for us to limit Liverpool's strengths? Because obviously they're going to look to get the ball wide, crosses into the box, but also play between the lines if we're going to play a back 5. So who's going to be key for us to be stopping those types of moments from occurring?
I think the key element is we've got to have players performing. You know, I don't think any member of the squad has really stepped up to the plate. Anyone who's playing anyway, I think Kilman could maybe warrants exclusion from that. Wan-Bissaka has been fantastic for the past couple of weeks, but again, he has fluctuated and he hasn't been mega consistent. So I think for us to nullify Liverpool's threat, everyone is going to have to be on their game. I think you're actually going to also have to try and get Mavropanos to track his runners and track the defender, like track Liverpool's attackers, which is a massive ask. But you know, it's frustrating when you look at our attack, at least pose a threat. I haven't seen anything from Kudus this season that really make me think. If I was running a top club, I haven't seen anything that would make me want to pay the £80 million release clause. I think he's been
this season
a shadow of his former self. And you know, it's not just that he's been inconsistent in front of goal. It's the fact he just doesn't really look interested. It's the work rate. And but to the point, those are all things that the side as a whole are going to have to try and step up if we want to nullify because the work ethic, the tracking, and you know, sitting deep. I think that's what Forest showed. If you sit deep and you can be compact, you can frustrate this Liverpool side. But I don't really trust that. I don't really trust our players to do that. So I think Todibo, Mavropanos are going to be key. They're going to have their best games in a West Ham shirt to get anything and to nullify players like Salah. But
yeah,
you know, I don't hold out much hope for that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's going to be an incredibly tough game. And as you mentioned there, the fundamentals against Southampton were lacking, you know, the work rate from the team and just working as a team. It just doesn't look that coordinated at times at West Ham. And, you know, against Liverpool, you're going to have to be incredibly disciplined. And as you say, tracking runners, Liverpool are going to be putting crosses into the box. They're going to be looking to play in midfield and over the top of our defence at times. We're going to have to track runners because we haven't been doing that consistently throughout the season, and it's caused us a lot of issues. So final point, Sloth, score prediction. We always do it. I've got one in my head, but I want to see what you say first. So I'm going to let you take the floor on this one.
I can see us getting embarrassed, to be honest. So I'm gonna try and be somewhat optimistic. I'm going to say 3-1 Liverpool. I do think Bowen will probably get a goal, but you know, I'm not mega confident, as you can tell. Yeah, 3-1 or 4-1, I can see being a generous score. If we perform anything like we did against Southampton, then it could be cricket scores, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had 4-1 in my head as my optimistic score. So I'll stick with the 4-1 prediction. Yeah, I just think Liverpool have too much quality. I think with the exclusion of Max Kilman, if he's going to be out, is a big miss for us in that back line. And yeah, if we play a back three with a midfield of Alvarez, Paqueta, I just worry that we're going to get torn apart with the likes of Trent coming in midfield. And I think they'll just pick us apart over time. But who knows? Football is a funny old game. It's the last game of the calendar year. We might be able to get something from it. But let us know down below your score predictions for the game, whether you're a West Ham fan, Liverpool fan. Do you see any confidence for Julen Lopetegui's side going into this, having been unbeaten in the last 4 games? Or is Arne Slot's Liverpool team going to run away with it and cement themselves at the top of the league going into the new year as well? So yeah, let us know down below in the comments section as well. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the breakdown. Subscribe to the channel for more content going into the new year. And Sloth, until the next one.
Come on, you irons.